Thank you for joining our session. We're going to kick things off in a moment or two. Before we get started, take a look at our quick poll that we have on the right-hand side of your screen. Enter in your answer and we'll get to the results during our session. Also, know that this is an interactive session and we'll be taking questions throughout. And with that, let's just go ahead and get things kicked off and started. Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Shibani Joshi, and for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to tackle how revitalizing workplaces can help rebuild brand confidence for employees and customers. Joining me for this important discussion is Josh Feinberg, ABM's Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer, and Scott Salmirs. He's ABM's President and CEO. Thank you to you both.
Thanks for having us today.
Before we get into it, I want to remind everyone that we want to hear from you. Please use the text chat to the right of your screen to post questions and engage in the discussion, and we'll bring in as many of those questions as we can. And with that, let's kick things off with Scott. Scott, where are we at this time when it comes to businesses bringing back in-person experiences for employees and customers? And I can hear a little bit of audio feedback here, so there's might be a little technical issues here and there, but we're going to just continue to roll through it. Go ahead, Scott.
Sure, that's great. So I think the first thing that has to happen is people have to actually get back to the office. We're seeing somewhere around 15% occupancy across the country, and some regions are stronger than others. And I think the vaccine rollout is very helpful for that. And it'll probably take, we suspect, a year or two for everyone to shake out the difference between work from home, hybrid, in person. But the one thing for certain is that there is virus awareness, and that's pervasive now. And you've probably heard the analogy now, but like what 9/11 did for security awareness and what it did for the security industry is probably what COVID-19 will have in terms of impact, in terms of healthy buildings, how people are feeling about safety and trust in their environment. And to get that momentum back to the office, employees are going to have to feel safe. They're going to have to feel protected. And, from our perspective, you're going to need to have transparency into your cleaning protocols, your air filtration protocols, because we have to create this momentum back. And people, again, not only do they have to feel safe in their work environment, they know they're going back home to their families. So they have to have this trust. And a lot of this will do with transparency, but virus protection, is here to stay from our standpoint.
Absolutely. So they're trying to balance returning to work, but then keeping not just their coworkers safe, but their families safe as well. It's an important consideration. I just want to remind everyone that we have a poll out. When do you anticipate your organization will be back to pre-pandemic occupancy levels of 50% or greater? Weigh in. We're going to get to the results in a second. And let's move on over to Josh now. What's the feedback been like from ABM's customers, and what has your company done to meet new post-COVID standards for safety and confidence? I imagine they're ever evolving to some extent.
They sure are. Thanks, Shibani. And I'll take the question in kind of those two parts. I mean, first on the feedback from our customers. We at ABM have an exceptionally diverse client base. So we have a kind of a rare view into all the different realities of today. We have some customers that never closed, like our healthcare customers, our manufacturing customers, some customers that have been hybrid for a good long time. And so some are in the office, some are out of the office. Commercial real estate's a great example of that. Many of the folks on the phone on the call today. And then also some have been shut down, like our sports and entertainment customers. So we have a very diverse customer base. But I will say the feedback that we're getting from them fall into three primary themes. The first one is the timing, and Scott already mentioned that. First thing is getting folks back into the buildings. There is an expectation that most are going to ramp back up or starting to ramp back up now through the summer into the fall, and then by end of year, probably be in a pretty stable place in terms of the return to the buildings. That's on the timing, sort of this gradual ramp up. The second one on more the capacity and space utilization, I think what we're also hearing is, interestingly, about 90% of our customers have said, we're going to keep the same amount of space or actually add space. So it's not so much as people migrate back that they're saying, oh, we want to reduce space. They're saying we're going to change the utilization of our space. So even if 75% of their previous number of individuals are in a building, there's a lot of discussion around changing the utilization and making the most of your time while you're in the office. So we actually expect, and our customers do, for the average square foot per person to actually rise. And then the third one is the theme of importance of trust over the longer term. Scott referred to it as well. This is not something that we're hearing is going to be, oh, the vaccinations are here, we're done. About 90% of our customers are saying, no, we're going to commit to this and we're going to do it over the longer term and take extra precaution to keep things going. So that's kind of the first, the feedback from the customers on the timing, the space utilization, and also the importance over the longer term. If you flip over to the second question, which is what are we doing to stay ahead? Again, there are kind of three major pieces there. First is we have an expert advisory council where we have industrial hygienists, infectious disease experts to take the subjectivity out of it. I think a lot of us have seen the changing, opinions on how to deal with it, right? And we have it. So we've taken the subjectivity out of it. And then the two more things: a risk assessment in terms of not all buildings are one size fits all. So we have to understand really how many instances are likely to occur here, how safe, and what is sort of the consequence, the severity of having an instance. There's a risk assessment that we've developed that we can make available to folks, but I think we're seeing that be vital to the return. And then third is a customized solution, right? So figuring out how to make sure that we are, helping clients, and our customers are coming back and saying, well, we're a little bit different. We want to progress back to work at this stage and do this and do that. We want to make sure that we're setting up a customized solution for them. So that's kind of the three things in which we're really trying to make sure that we and our customers stay confident coming back.
But that is a lot to do between now and the fall. And I want to go over the poll results that we received and get each of you to maybe quickly weigh in. When do you anticipate your organization will be back to pre-pandemic occupancy at 50% or greater? And the majority of people said October or December of this year. A third, just under that, said July to September. And then a fraction also said not until 2022. What are your thoughts on that about 2022 and how people and different companies are sort of ramping up?
Yeah, I think on this one, Shibani, and Scott chime in here as well. It doesn't surprise me. I think the way we're hearing from our customer base, it really depends on the industry you're in as to how quickly or you're going to move back in. There are some essential jobs out there where you have to be in the office in order to do your work, as we all know. There are parts of every company that do that. And then there are others that allow for more flexibility. So I think there's sort of, as Scott said, a feeling out of how many people are going to be in, how many people are going to be working remotely, and how do we balance those two. But again, the consistent theme we're hearing is we're not going to go ahead and reduce our space. What we're going to do is think about the best ways to utilize the space to be most productive and safe for our purposes, and then making sure you think about that from your perspective.
And what I would add as well is not every employee is the same. Some are high risk, some are in different personal situations. So we have to be cognizant of that as well. So it's not one size fits all. So we're going to be pretty prescriptive of how we bring people back, when we bring people back, and it's going to be customized based on a person. So it's job function and the individual. So it doesn't surprise me that some would be more cautious.
Scott, I want to pose this question to you from Andrea Hoffman, and she asks the question: why do you feel the momentum back to work is critical for moving an organization forward? Do you believe that a hybrid workforce will not be able to create a great customer experience? That's the purpose of what we're talking about today, the customer experience, and then obviously help the company obtain revenue targets. Why focus on the physical space? And how does that relate to strategy, performance, and all the metrics? Talk to us, give us your response to that question.
Sure. And I think, I would caveat by saying we're all learning through this, right? And I think every company is thinking about some type of hybrid, and we're just not sure how much of that is going to be more in person versus work from home. So it's going to be a learning experience for everybody. What I hear other CEOs talking about is the same thing that I'm thinking about, is what's going to be the impact on the culture of the firm? How are we going to recruit people, right? How are we going to bring them in and assimilate them into our culture? At ABM, we have a very strong culture of collaboration, right? And it's working really well, work from home right now. but what are the effects over the long term? How do we develop people? Do they turn into leaders? So I don't proclaim to have all the answers. And that's why I do think there's going to be this period of a couple of years where we're all trying to figure it out. And, the most important thing is performing for our clients as well. Right. That's an important factor too. And for a lot of businesses, it is an in-person experience. And if it was 100% in person before, it'll go to hybrid as well. So it's a feeling out period.
Yeah, and that ramping up is going to allow that learning, as you said, for so many companies. I want to dig in, Scott, a little bit more on the risks that brands face upon reopening, because everyone is trying to risk assess. To Josh's point, how should companies be thinking about this risk factor?
This is probably the most important long-term issue outside of everything that's happening, because your brand is what speaks to your customers and to the people that work at the firm. And how we react as we reopen and how we think about creating a healthy environment is going to dictate how leadership feels about your employees. It's going to dictate culture, good and bad, right? And we all know in the world of social media, that's going to be amplified, good and bad as well. So I think we have to be very aware of what the brand is going to speak to. And one of the things that I've talked about is, and it's a good analogy, when you're looking for space and either your lease is coming due and you need to evaluate whether your existing facility is good or you're just expanding, you go on a space tour with your real estate broker, and it's usually a group of people. And when you go to another building, you're looking at lobby finishes. You're looking at how people are greeted at security and how visitors are treated, right? I think that's going to change. I think that's going to become secondary. Now it's going to be meeting the landlord and saying, what are you doing about a healthy building? Are you cleaning? Are you filtering your air? What are the things that you're doing to keep this facility safe? And realistically, Shibani, I think even from a recruiting standpoint, I think people are going to be on interviews, and one of the interview questions are going to be is, what are you doing in this space that'll make me feel safe? So when we think about brand, I don't think it's kind of one-dimensional anymore. I think we have to have a very well-rounded view of what the impacts can be if you're not doing the right thing.
Absolutely. You make some great points, Scott. Josh, can you describe some of the unique situations companies or brands in different sectors are facing right now? Is it more difficult for specific sectors or businesses than others based on what you're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Shibani. Yeah, it really depends on the industry that you're in, kind of as to how difficult it is for you. And I'll tick through a few examples just to illustrate that. So think of our, healthcare, the healthcare industry. I think it's fairly obvious. They've had to navigate COVID from the very beginning, and they probably feel the most impact from the dynamic ebbs and flows of the cases, because think about the space utilization changes that they have to make on a dime, or keeping the physicians and the nurses and the other hospital staff healthy and whatnot with this dynamic environment with COVID so present. So there's a dynamic environment, as you can imagine there. But then there are places like, manufacturers. Think of the manufacturers who we put the onus on to produce the supplies that we all needed for the past year.
Yeah.
24/7, you all have to stay open. Okay, we have to stay open. So when are we going to go and deep clean? When are we going to disinfect? When are we going to make sure there is no break in the day? At night, you can't just go ahead and do that. They're open 24/7. Think of the dynamics or the challenges that come with that. We're fortunate in commercial real estate often to be able to, hey, at nighttime, we can do some of that. And then a couple others, stadiums, in our sports, our sports area, stadiums, obviously many of them have been shut down, but they've been challenged with repurposing. So they're repurposing their space to be vaccination centers, testing centers. They're doing all things which are trying to repurpose it. And now they're challenged with trying to bring back, fans where you're sitting, inches away from somebody else. And if they fill the stadium, think about the density of the people. So each of these situations has a bit of a different dynamic to it. And certainly that's why it's so important for you to really understand the situation you're in, because inevitably the key theme there, safety, and health of everybody and instilling trust. but it's going to come in very different forms, and the level of
So many
difficulty just depends on
complexities
what
to deal
sector you're
with,
in.
which is why customization is so crucial. But there's also opportunities, Scott. There are some opportunities for change for the better. What are they?
Yeah, and there's a lot, and it goes to some of the customization. So what I think COVID did for every organization, it tested their agility, and it tested their ability to execute on business contingency plans that were bespoke, right? We've heard, unprecedented so many times. It's the overused word of the last year, and people had to put together a playbook on the fly and run their companies. And so I think what the changes for the better are going to be are people evaluating, kind of taking a knee and stopping and saying, let's think about the last year. What are the things we could do better? And, do we have the right suppliers, that we needed? Were we able to communicate with our employees effectively? And then, even Shibani, on a bigger level, is our business model resilient enough, right, to withstand another type of pandemic? So there's going to be a lot of evaluation going on. Look, for us, selfishly, we like that because we're kind of the 800-pound gorilla, as they say, in our industry. So, we had access to supply chain, we had the PPE, the disinfectant, and even from our clients' ability to synthesize all the data that was coming out of the CDC and the World Health Organization, we put together an advisory panel to help figure this out. So I think people are going to do just a lot of self-reflecting about how they performed and who they're working with. And the good that's going to come out of it is everyone is going to be stronger. And even if it is something that's going to come out of the blue next time, I think we're going to be better able to deal with it having gone through COVID.
Yes, and so many experts that we've all spoken to say it's not if, it's when, so that preparation is going to pay off for years to come. Josh, brands need to meet the safety and confidence needs of both consumers and employees. We've been discussing this throughout this talk. So how do brands go about instilling trust? Because trust is so crucial all across the spectrum, and to get people to even walk through the doors, right? So how do you go about deliberately creating that?
Great question, Shibani. Don't underestimate the psychological component here. I think that's probably the key message about instilling trust. It's as much about informing people that you're doing what is best for them to make it a safe environment as it is in actually doing it. And so, on that, we have a program called Safety Scene, which I think is evidence of that, which is something that visual assurance. So this is, cleaning in the daytime, for example. Used to be pre-COVID, most of the cleaning was done at night, other than the one person who might show up in your office suite, a couple hours a day. Exactly. Now it's during the day. You're going to start to see signs. You're going to start to see, good housekeeping seal of approval, like stickers that say things like, this has been cleaned at 10 a.m. This is certified by an authority, whether it be in an ABM Industries, for example. But again, it's going to be a lot about that. And I think getting that clear and getting it visible is the first step. And the other one is communication with your workers, with your customers, right? We care. We're taking precaution. We partner with experts. We're not just making it up as we go. We use testing and validation, to confirm that we did it. So there's this, kind of a combination, but I would just say that I think the psychological components of it and making sure that element's not lost on folks, and you're not just going through the motions of, yes, we need to clean 7 times a day, but
the way I would say that,
communication,
Shibani, is like, picture yourself going back to the studios and you're seeing the head of real estate for CNBC and asking, hey, what are we doing about virus protection? And they say, oh, don't worry about it, we got it covered. Yeah. That's not going to fly, right? It's almost like you want to be handed a packet that says, this is the things we're doing, you should feel safe. So all the stuff that used to happen behind the scenes is going to be front forward now. Think about cleaners. They used to clean at night. They'll still do a lot of cleaning at night, but you're going to want the optics of seeing people taking care of high touch services. So it's the game's really changed when it comes to visibility and awareness. And the old answers of "don't worry, I got it," it's just not going to resonate going forward.
Absolutely. Those assurances are, what you might find in maybe a factory setting, a hospital setting, more sterile, where sterilization is necessary, are going to be something that you need to book a hotel room or to, take a chance to get on a cruise ship again. That marketing is going to be so crucial for the unrolling and the returning to quote unquote normal. Both Scott and Josh, thank you so much for your time today. A really wonderful, lively discussion. Thank you again for being with us.
That was terrific. Thanks so much for having us.
And thank you to everyone who joined us today.
Our pleasure,
We
Shibani.
hope that you get a chance to check out ABM's booth in the expo area of this presentation to learn more about the work that they're doing. And now we're done here. You can head back over to the main stage button. It's on your left. Click on it to get back to the next session. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.